Hey, it's Andy, and it's Thursday, June 24th. Yeah, it still is. I just finished up this morning with a fun presentation I did for all the international partners for Discover Card. That was a blast. Really smart group. Fascinating to look into the payments world and what Discover Card is looking at and some of the success they've had. But fascinating to see that bifurcated world between the developed countries and the developing countries as far as economic growth goes. So we know the virus is doing, we know the vaccines are being rolled out pretty significantly across the developed world. It has not yet happened as much, obviously, in the developing world. So I expect we're going to have rapid rates of growth in the developed world, and then in the second half of the year, we'll have strong growth in the developing world. So that's good news. Okay, that said, you can get all my research at andrewbush.com and follow me on Twitter at ABUSCH. All right, here's your top 3 articles for today. I'm starting off with the IMF, and they put out a lot of great research for free. Highly recommend you get on their mailing distribution list. But they put out a really nice piece on inflation and looking at developing countries and the impact that the rise in food prices have had on emerging markets. And the reason why it's an interesting focus is because it's the story of inflation, and it's the story that is being told around the world right now as commodity prices had risen so much. Yes, some of them have backed off, like lumber and copper. Food prices have come off a little bit, but it more dramatically impacts the emerging markets. Because why? Because emerging markets and low-income countries, those consumers spend a higher proportion of their disposable income on food. And if you have food inflation rising, they have to spend more, and then they have less to spend on other things. So it's a good read. Check it out. The next article is from the Wall Street Journal talking about the history of inflation. The journal's put out a lot of great stuff on inflation, but I thought the interesting thing was on inflation from the 1970s, how it impacted investment, right? Where you had the cyclical industries, they performed very well during the inflationary aspect of the 1970s, which ran for a long time. As you had a combination of high fiscal spending and high monetary stimulus. Good old Arthur Burns at the Fed at that time was right, fit hand in glove with Richard Nixon, President of the United States, making sure he got elected. But that caused a lot of problems. And then we had the Volcker regime come in and slam down inflation for a long time. But anyway, it's a good overview. And what I thought was interesting that, cyclical industries like chemicals and mining and airlines performed better during the late 1970s and into the early 80s as you had those high inflation level in the United States. So keep that in mind. It's a good read. And finally, I'm just going to go, and again, I apologize, there's another article in the journal, but I liked what they had to say about wage inflation. Wage inflation about jobs overall. Now, this isn't the only place you can get this information about jobs. There's a lot of things out there. If people are trying to explain the JOLTS numbers, right? Why there's 9.3 million job openings. But also the quits, right? I think there's 2.7 million people quit last month, which is unbelievable. And as everybody knows, in the leisure and hospitality, bars, restaurants, travel, it's hard getting people to go back to work. And so why is that occurring? And why are people quitting their jobs? Well, there's a lot of speculation that it has to do with government policy. Obviously, the extended unemployment benefits plus the topping up of $600 and $300. A lot of people save that money, so now they have the capability of rethinking what they want to do for a job. And I think, again, a lot of people looked at their work is a combination of being able to go into work and their coworkers and how much fun that was. Well, when you remove that and then you just look only at the work, then people are having a second thought or a second look at what that actually meant to them. So the article is pretty fun. Gets into the jobless claims numbers as well. Obviously, those were not as good as expected. And it really gets to the heart of why are they staying so high at about 418,000. All right, that's it for me, Andy Bush. You can get all my research at andrewbush.com. Follow me on Twitter at ABUSCH.